Oh, I hope I am not butchering your name. Good. Okay. Thank you, Lee. I'm very excited to hear what you have to say, being from the front lines. And you might want to stand back just so you don't get feedback.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm here as an uninvited guest on the traditional and ancestral land of the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. My name is Leah Loreen, and I'm a forest defender. I've spent the last 4 months on Pacheedaht and Dididat territory on Vancouver Island at the front lines of the Kaikous blockade, which is only one of more than 5 other blockades that have persevered for almost a year now. To support the peaceful protests and the activism there to protect ancient forests. My heart sings to see all of you coming together to do the same here today. Thank you. Before sharing my experiences, I want to start at the beginning. Over 1,000 years ago, a sapling Douglas fir tree sprouted on Pacheedaht territory on Vancouver Island, along with several cedar and hemlock, and so many others of their brothers and sisters. Through its incredibly long lifetime, it grew to a height of 70 meters, a circumference of 12 meters, and a diameter of 4 meters. This ancient tree is known as the Big Lonely Doug, the second tallest Douglas fir tree in all of Canada. Its name derives from its immediate surroundings. Once the protector and the mother tree of a big forest, it is today the only tree left standing in a huge clearing after all its relatives had been cut down. For these last millennia, Indigenous people stewarded the land beneath and around these trees. They watched over them, over the mountaintops they covered like moss, the rivers and lakes they nourished, the meadows they grew in, and all the living beings they overshadowed. Over 500 years ago, the first European explorers arrived, claiming this land for foreign empires, creating settlements, waging war and oppressing the native people. By ways of colonizing, they stripped this land of its resources and Indigenous people of their rights, children, and traditional ways of life. 75 years ago, the company Teal Jones was founded by Jack Jones, one of the biggest among many other logging companies that extract ancient trees in Western Canada. Today, it is owned by his sons, Tom and Dig Jones, who say that, quote, they've only just started, unquote. 9 years ago, more than 90% of productive, low elevation old growth forests in British Columbia had been logged. Today, less than 3% of ancient forests remain. And this is why we're here. I have met the Big Lonely Doug. I've spoken with it, hugged it, and mourned the forest it has lost. Over the last months, I've also met some of its few still existing brothers and sisters in the neighboring forests. Ancient trees that go by the names of Titania, grandmother and grandfather tree on Pacheedaht territory. And I've protected some others, such as the giant Kaikous and the cedar queen, standing proud and tall on Dididat territory. I felt incredibly humble and honored whenever I was in the presence of these living beings who've guarded the land for longer than my mind can grasp. After several weeks of camping in the Kaikous Valley, the community formed around those trees. All of us were there to put our jobs, time, and safety on the line to protect the ancient giants that had guarded over these forests for time immemorial. To quote Savannah Callison, one of our Indigenous land defenders, being surrounded by a group of people where nobody is operating from a place of personal gain is a unique, amazing, and unfortunately very rare experience. And it wasn't long until our dedication was put to a test. On May 17th, the RCMP came to us as the first blockade to inform us that a police exclusion zone had been established and that in 24 hours anyone who remained in the Kaikus blockade camp would get arrested. These exclusion zones have been deemed illegal by a judge since they prevent citizens, media, and legal observers from entering public Crown land, as well as indigenous people from accessing their unceded territories. Since then, every single day has seen more arrests, escalation, and brutality on indigenous land outside of the public eye. On May 22nd, a group of 150 citizens, including families, children, and seniors, united behind indigenous leadership to challenge the exclusion zones by walking across the police checkpoint. It was the most amazing day of my life. As the few police officers present hid and locked themselves in their cars, we peacefully marched and sang before coming together in a circle around a ceremonial fire to listen and learn from indigenous land defenders and elders. They spoke of love, the love to the forest and the love to each other. And they invited the growing number of police officers to join us in this circle and come together, which they declined. As Kaikus camp was eventually taken by the police and our friends, some of whom had lived in tree sits 30 meters above the ground for several days, were forcibly removed, logging was allowed to continue. The trees are falling there right now. Most of Kaikus has been logged. And I was told yesterday that the great ancient cedar queen has fallen. While this breaks my heart, I know that there's other blockades still standing and that the fight is not over. More than 200 people have gotten arrested over the last month, and we are not standing down. During all of this, I got to witness how the ancient giants have motivated thousands of people to go out of their way to achieve a common goal. It has been the hardest and most fulfilling time of my life, and I had never felt so certain that I was exactly where I was meant to be. In these last few months, I learned more about indigenous cultures, what it means to be a part of a community and to stand up for what is right, than during my entire life. I also learned that this is broader than Fairy Creek. This is broader than BC and it's broader than Canada. Because issues surrounding deforestation, indigenous rights, climate change denial, and political inaction exist everywhere. Which means that there's people fighting the very same fight everywhere. And now's the time for us to stand up together with them from all corners of the world to fight for the protection of the last remaining ancient forests, to fight for a healthy environment, and to fight for our future. But most of all, I learned that this movement has value in more meanings than one. So while we have come here to stand for the old growth trees, we continue standing for more than that. We stand for uniting across generations, cultural differences, language barriers, as well as race, class, and other societal frictions. We stand for indigenous sovereignty. We stand for female empowerment. We stand for including children in the decisions of our future. We stand for the power of art, music, and dance. We stand for holding politicians accountable. We stand for exercising our right to peaceful protest. We stand for lifelong learning. We stand for acknowledging our privilege. We stand for protection of our planet. And to accomplish all of this, we stand by each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leah. That was incredible. Okay, I just want to say huge thanks to all of you. I know we're standing out in the sun right now, roasting. It's going to be an incredible photo op that we're going to get back over to Fairy Creek. And I just really want to say, like, power to you guys. I really appreciate it. Next up, we have Katie, and then we'll have two more speakers, about 5 minutes each. then a few photo ops, then we're going to do a power march. So Katie, if you could come up.